Hello friends, Miss Natalie here. Today I want to show you how to create implied texture in your Krita artwork using 5 different brush options. So let's get started. The first thing you can do is just choose a brush that gives you texture when you use it, like the dry bristle brush. You can see that if we just make some marks with it, we get this nice brush texture. If we keep going back and forth, we lose that texture, but if we just make small marks, you get an interesting brushy texture. So that's number 1. Number 2 is to take a smooth brush, like say the Basic 2, and change the brush settings with this Edit Brush Settings tool, which is right next to the Choose Brush preset. That'll show you which brush you are currently using, and you can pop right next to it and edit the brush settings. And one of the options is pattern. I have that chosen. You may have to scroll down to find pattern. And there's lots of different patterns that you can use. And if I click on pattern, it lets me like practice it. That's a pretty good pattern. Some of the patterns, I can delete it. Some of the patterns won't show up very well. Some of them you need to change the strength. Make it, oh, I see. That's why those patterns are showing up. And you can see right up here how that changes what it looks like. Let's go back to pattern. Let's choose a pattern that's like easy to see, like this one. Always easy to see. All right, and we'll stop and can just show you. Let's get a different color, and there's that pattern. Okay, cool. So that's 2 ways. The next way is to actually use a texture brush. There are brushes down here that have these little red and white checks, and they're texture brushes. There's texture for hair, splats, noise, cracks, random particles, there's crackles. Texture Big is a fun one, and you can get just different kinds of textures. I like the reptile texture personally. I think that's nifty. You can see if I draw with it, it's giving me a scaly texture, which is pretty cool. Another thing in this general area of your brush presets are the stamps. And there's a lot of different stamps here. We've got leaves and herbals, which is like little plants, mountains, grass, different kinds of grass, a floor. So we could get a texture that kind of looks like a dirt floor, maybe. That's a thing, and that's really interesting. And there are lots of different stamps that you can use. There's a water one even, which is really nice. Reflections on the water. And then the final thing I wanted to show you is these RGBA brushes, which are basically have all of the highlights and the shadows built in to make them look like something. Most of them look like thick paint, the ones that I have, but there are other RGBA brushes out there, and so you can look. This one even has like different tones and shades, not just the shadows and the highlights to make it look like brush, but like, you know, hey, I'm going to take some of the colors that are around that, so it really looks like we've got actual thick paint on our brush. So that's pretty cool. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different ways to create implied texture using that good old freehand brush tool and some of the different brush presets and the brush editing settings. So play around with different textures that you can make. Of course, we're not actually making textures. We're just showing some implied textures using the tools. But go ahead, play around with that and go make some art.